Ever thought of building a 4K editing rig for yourself? With the launch of the most anticipated next-gen AMD processors, this is the time to do it. Hey, this is Mayur from the Radman Tech. The agenda here is to build the best bang for the buck 4K editing PC under 1,15,000 rupees. Although we chose the specification keeping video editing as the primary goal, however, this PC delivers excellent gaming experience as well. Any modern day computer can edit 4K video as long as you have the patience. To deliver a seamless experience and a machine that can handle the rendering of mixed formats, we have selected the new Ryzen 7 5800X processor. This 8-core 16-thread workhorse from AMD can handle all your video editing tasks with a breeze. Based on the Zen 3 architecture, the Ryzen 5800X offers a significant improvement over the last-gen Ryzen processors. When compared to Intel, the Ryzen 5800X is cheaper than Intel's flagship 10900K, and it also beats the 10900K by 7.4% in creative application as per Puget Systems benchmark.
To cool this beastly processor, we are using the Cooler Master Hyper 212 LED. This has 4 direct contact copper heat pipes coupled to aluminum fins. This is mounted to a 120mm fan which takes the heat away from the processor. This has both clip-on and bracket mounting options, and you can also add another fan in push-pull configuration for better cooling.
As we know, Ryzen processor loves faster memory. Keeping that in mind, we have selected a single stick of HyperX 16GB 3200MHz DDR4 RAM. Although we know the advantages of dual channel memory, but due to fixed budget and for better upgradability in future, we settled for a single stick of RAM. Considering the recent price increase in motherboards, the MSI B550A Pro offers a variety of features and decent VRM capacity, which makes it a better choice. Keep in mind, you might have to update the BIOS of your motherboard in order to use the latest 5000 series AMD processor. However, this was not a problem for us since our motherboard supports flash BIOS. If you want to know how this works, please check the link in the description below. A high-end graphic card is not always a requirement for straight video editing. After a little research, we settled for NVIDIA RTX 2060 Super from Gigabyte, which can not only handle 4K editing but can even handle 8K footage. For primary storage, we are using the crucial 500GB NVMe SSD, and for additional storage capacity, a 1TB hard drive from WD. To power all this, we chose a 650W 80+ bronze semi-modular power supply from Antex, which does give the user a little headroom for any future upgrade and overclocking. Finally, to house all the components, we have the ICE 511 mid-tower case from Anti-Sports. It offers decent airflow and front I/O ports. It also comes with acrylic panel, PSU shroud, anti-dust filter, and 4 120mm fans, one pre-installed at the rear and 3 at the front, which are auto RGB. Now, let's put the parts together. Hope you enjoyed the build sequence. Now, let's look at the video editing, rendering time, and gaming performance. Starting with 4K video editing on Premiere Pro. The playback seems pretty great with no stutter or drop in frames with playback resolution set to full. We applied few video transition effects and basic color correction to see if it would affect the performance. Well, it did drop minimal frames, nothing significant. It does get better once the playback render is complete. The hardware-enabled rendering was a breeze. It hardly took 45 seconds to render out a 2-minute 25 fps H.264 video, which is quite impressive. Coming to DaVinci Resolve, the same clips took 2 minutes 31 seconds to render, with similar transition and basic color correction. Since it's also an excellent gaming PC, here are some of the gaming statistics. In Metro Exodus, with graphics set to high and ray tracing enabled, we get an average FPS of 122, 69 FPS of 1% low, 64 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging about 21%. When graphics set to ultra and ray tracing enabled, we get an average FPS of 95, 61 FPS of 1% low, 46 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging about 28%. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, with graphics set to high, we get an average FPS of 67, 44 FPS of 1% low, 20 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging about 30%. When graphics set to very high, we get an average FPS of 64, 31 FPS of 1% low, 20 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging at 40%.
Going easy on you. You might even be ahead if you weren't such a show-off.
In Need for Speed Payback, with graphics set to high, we get an average FPS of 146, 94 FPS of 1% low, 62 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging about 55%.
See if you can keep her under control.
Now you never ask.
Every gang in town wants their hands on the prototype tech in that car.
I'm sure. When they're not
When
getting
graphics
the car
set to
until I
ultra,
take a peek under
we
that
get an
hood
average
window.
FPS of 124, 61 FPS of 1% low, 69 FPS in 0.1% low, and CPU usage averaging at 61%. Hope you liked the video. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel for more tech related content.